So Cinema Cartography made a video not too long ago on the illusion of progress. It's this one right here. And someone sent it in chat to me. They said that it was kind of fashy, if I remember correctly. And I was like, all right, let's see if it actually is fashy. I don't fucking know. So I watched the video. I go over it. It's right here. If you want to see my reaction to the Cinema Cartography, the illusion of progress or whatever. But an interesting thing about that video is, hold on, let's listen to it. You seem to be gesturing vaguely at a past that you're glorifying and that you characterize as the pinnacle of humanity, and criticizing modernity vaguely without actually pinpointing an actual systemic reason as to why modern society sucks feels fashy. What do you guys think? I've completely ignored chat this whole time. And basically I look at the video. There's some things I disagree with, some things I agree with, if I remember correctly. And at the end, well, I'll show you. This is what I thought. I don't think it's fashy. I think it has fascistic tendencies. I don't think cinema cartography is necessarily fascist. Let's say there's like a scales. Is this content creator fascist or not? Does it give a bit of weight to the fascist? Sure, but it doesn't mean that he is a fascist. Of course, if he talks about how Western art has become degenerate, then it will confirm. Or if there's other things that confirm the if he says that Western art is degenerate, then that will confirm that he's a fascist. So, Cinema Cartography published a video 9 days ago called Degeneracy. All right. So, how do I start this? I haven't watched that video yet. I haven't. Perhaps he's responding to criticism. Maybe he's responding to my criticism of him. Who knows? I don't know. But he made a video on degeneracy. And having seen The Illusion of Progress, I'll have to assume that he's either responding to criticism or he's actually denouncing degeneracy. And when we asked, is cinema cartography a fascist for believing that, in the illusion of progress or whatever, I said, yeah, maybe that's a bit fashy, but he's not a fascist. He's not saying that art is straight up degenerate, that modern art is straight up degenerate. And before watching that video, I want to preface this by talking about what degeneracy is, or degenerate art, and why it's considered fascist. We have to talk about that. And the reason why is because people will say, well, yeah, he calls some art degenerate. Why is that necessarily fascist? Yeah, Alex Prop says a dog whistle. Yeah, it is. I would even say, a dog whistle is supposed to be used as a way to signal your fascist allegiances, or at least your ideological allegiances, without people outside of that ideology knowing. But I feel like when you say something's degenerate, it's like, at that point, it's not even dog whistling. You're just saying it, right? So I don't know. A dog whistle is trying to subtly let people know, oh, I just want to make the trains go on time. That's a dog whistle. But I feel like degeneracy and degenerate is not even subtle enough to be a dog whistle anymore. In any case, there's been a long connection with the term degenerate and degeneracy, especially with Nazism. But, it doesn't necessarily make the word degenerate a Nazi word or whatever, right? Not everything the Nazis did was fascist or bad, right? For example, yeah, click me on that, fuckers. For example, Nazis had breakfast. Does that make breakfasts bad? No. Nazis did some things. So using the word degenerate might have been some breakfast. Everyone does it, I guess. But no, degenerate actually has it's a fascist concept. It's not just a concept that happens to be used by Nazis. But the very term degenerate, why it's associated to fascism and why it's been used by fascists is for many reasons. One of them is fascists don't like what is abnormal, right? There's what is normal and what is not normal. And fascists will reject what is not normal. Normality, what is normal, is determined by social and historical context. So what is normal today might have not been normal a long time ago. Some things that we tolerate today might not have been tolerated a long time ago. So it always depends on the socio-political context. However, there is still this vision of what is normal and what isn't. Degeneracy is what is abnormal. And fascists will fight. They will see abnormality, or something that isn't conforming, as something that is to be eradicated, as a disease. So degeneracy is labeled as something that is akin to a disease, which is fascist rhetoric, but it's also in the core of fascist ideology. Another thing is that degeneracy is a way to impugn something without necessarily having to show or having to prove that this thing is bad in any way, aside from it being abnormal. So now we talked about in The Illusion of Progress, where cinematography talks about all the issues of the world without actually rooting his analysis in material conditions, right? It's just, it was better before. It's the glorified past I mentioned in that video, right? It's a return to whatever glorified past I have. So there's a lack of material analysis. So when you call something degenerate, you're not actually talking about the consequences. You can't even analyze the consequences of something being degenerate, because what you're doing is vaguely denouncing something that is vaguely bad for reasons that you don't even know. Like, there's just, like, for example, corrupting, because it's abnormal. Anyway, so, and yes, there's also the whole degenerate art exhibition. The degenerate art exhibition is art that was, Alex Prop says, used to put Jewish art. It wasn't necessarily Jews who made that art, though. It was all sorts of art. They called it Jewish art because, like, to them, Jewish, degenerate, it's interchangeable, right? The artist who was the most exhibited in the degenerate art exhibition was himself a Nazi, a card-carrying Nazi. Sometimes Nazis are silly a bit like that, right? So even the fascists were like, yeah, this fascist is way too degenerate. We're going to expose him so much in our degenerate art exhibition. The whole point of the degenerate art exhibition was to kill the artist, not physically, though they did kill artists physically, believe it or not, but was kill the artist in their essence, in their very status as an artist, right? They showed degenerate art as something that's not art, to laugh at, to mock at. And by mocking or laughing at art that they thought it was too degenerate to be art, what they were doing is basically killing the artist or taking away the status of artist from someone and making them just like, a normal person or someone who doesn't have the power of an artist. So it's to disempower modern art or modern artists. Oh yeah, by the way, the reason why because I'm not subscribed to cinematography, though I did like some of their videos. Oh yeah, their newest video titled Degeneracy is even closer to outright fascist moonlighting. Generic, vague criticism of modern art as degenerate, blaming it on Lenin and postmodern sensibilities, and completely failing to point to capitalism and the systemic impetus for worse art, while pondering why art has lost meaning. 32 likes. So the video has been popping off because, wondering if he's a fascist. So I was like, why not look at the video where he, I guess, goes mask off? Considering they just released a video about degeneracy after a watch of it, I can safely say, yes, they are. And it's so fucking funny that at the end of the video, I say, if he ever says degenerate art or rants about degenerate art, then he's a fascist. And he does it a month later. See? Some people might say that I call everyone a fascist or whatever because lefties do that. But like, I was right. Can I get some claps in chat? I don't have chat on screen, but like, can I get an ovation or something? I didn't even say he was a fascist because I was trying to be careful. Turned out he was. Anyway, all right, let's watch that damn video. It's pretty short. It's 12 minutes. Let's watch what Cinema Cartography has to say.
The fragility of human civilization is a profound lesson we learn from the 20th century. At the start of that era, there was widespread optimism that progress in technology and morality would go hand in hand. People believed that humanity would become increasingly wealthy, healthy, and ultimately happier. Wisdom, it was assumed, would naturally follow.
This is true in some ways. There was like great optimism in the 20th century for the future. I don't like that font. Krenda, does that font make you think of anything? No, you wouldn't be so. You wouldn't call him a Nazi just for the font, Krena. Come on. No, okay, so it's true that things didn't work out, right? And it's a criticism of liberalism that even people on the left have, right? That the whole idea of liberalism is that through market freedom, through technological advancement and innovation due to capitalism, will eventually lift everyone out of poverty and everyone will get better. Education was becoming more and more accessible. We really thought that things would get better through capitalism. Many people did, but it didn't. Now there's different ways of saying, or different analysis or lenses to look at how modernity failed. You can either say, yeah, the wealthy actually took advantage of all these technological advancements to concentrate power and leave thousands, millions disempowered, and we'll see. Maybe he'll say that instead of just vaguely gesturing at a, we'll see.
Without a doubt, humankind has achieved great things. On the grand scale, we are wealthier and healthier than ever. For instance, the life expectancy of a Brazilian peasant now exceeds that of a member of the Portuguese royal family during the height of colonialism. Poverty is no longer defined by an absolute lack of food, shelter, or clothing, but rather by relative comparison with the abundant life of the more prosperous. However, while progress has not been entirely illusory, the fear of regression has also proven justified. The Great War shattered the naive optimism that progress towards an utopian society was inevitable or even possible. The most civilized of people demonstrated their capacity for organized violence, claiming the lives of millions in unimaginable ways. Revolts against entire civilizations occurred throughout the 20th century. We experienced China's Cultural Revolution, the Khmer Rouge regime in Cambodia. So who can confidently claim that such horrors could never happen again? Right now, as I speak, children in the Congo are mining for cobalt to power the rechargeable batteries of the device you're using to watch this very video. Under these circumstances, one might expect intellectuals, who are assumed to possess deeper insight and foresight than ordinary individuals, to be preoccupied with preserving the boundaries that separate civilization from barbarism. After all, these boundaries have proven remarkably fragile. However, one would be mistaken to assume so. Some intellectuals have willingly embraced barbarism, while others remain oblivious to the fact that boundaries require maintenance and at times vigorous defense.
I don't sleep!
First, where do I start? Barbarism has to be defined and it has to be explained. What is barbarism? And then saying there's a thin line between, chaos and order, and we have to defend that line, with a strong hand, is the same rhetoric of the people that you are denouncing that killed millions. It's this exact same rhetoric. We need to have order and authority to protect those borders, if I understand correctly. I'm not sure. Is that what they're saying?
Assume so. Some intellectuals have willingly embraced barbarism, while others remain oblivious to the fact that boundaries require maintenance and at times vigorous defense.
I don't sleep! I eat like... I have no friends, no social life, and I'm miserable!
Breaking taboos and transgressing norms have become praiseworthy in the modern critic's vocabulary, regardless of the value or significance of the transgression. A reviewer of Peter Soto's Selfish Little, for example, praised Soto's alleged disregard for convention as a virtue in itself, without specifying the particular convention he was breaking at all. The reviewer considers Soto's unconventionality in itself inherently praiseworthy.
I agree with that. I do believe that unconventionality is in itself praiseworthy, even if you disagree. Because I think a lot of conventions are not questioned. Because one of the things about conventions is that they are so ingrained within our culture and within our education that if it's not pointed out or if it's not transgressed, you don't even know it's a convention. You think it's natural. So the transgression of conventions, even if you disagree with the transgression itself and you believe that the convention is a good one to maintain, it's still important to question it, to actually think, are those conventions that we want to keep? Or are those conventions that we want to reject? And you cannot do that without actually acknowledging that these are conventions in the first place, right? You know, conventions, norms, traditions, all these kind of things. For example, maybe he'll disagree with, maybe cinema cartography is going to disagree with this. But for example, homosexuality, right? Being openly gay transgresses a convention or a norm. It did so even more in like the 60s, 70s, and it still does to a lesser point today. Being trans is one that's like actually pretty strong right now, right? But these, you know, you might disagree with gay people existing, or you might disagree with trans people existing, but breaking the convention of heterosexual couples or whatever, or cis people, breaking those conventions, even if you disagree, allows us to actually evaluate, are those conventions that we accept, that we want to keep? Even if you say, yes, we have to keep them, at least now you actively want to keep them, not passively want to keep them, right? I'm sure many people have experienced this very recently when they started knowing that trans people existed. Since when, 2016, 2018, right? A lot of people didn't know trans people existed. Or if they knew, they were like, oh, it's like kind of some, you know, kink or whatever. I don't fucking know. But it's becoming normalized. More and more people are breaking the convention. Even if you disagree, or if you don't want to be trans, or if you disagree with trans people existing, you still have to recognize the value of putting into question gender. Because now, even though you disagree with trans people existing, you have a stronger basis for your understanding of what gender is. And if you believe that gender and sex are the same thing, well, that's your belief. I can't, you know, whatever. But at least now you understand your conception of gender instead of just assuming it or having some intuition, right? Instead of having some intuition about these things, now you actually actively know, because some people have made you think about it. There's value in transgression inherently. That's what I'm trying to come at, which is something cinematography doesn't agree with. And norms do change all the time. There was a time it was normal to only bath every 6 months. Not washing hands when treating patients was a norm up to 1800s. Absolutely. So norms, it's good to challenge norms. I mean, some people will say, you know, when you challenge norms, I think that's what cinematography is saying. It's not saying that you shouldn't challenge norms. I think what they're saying is, if you challenge norms, there needs to be a good reason for it. So in the case of like bathing and washing hands, there's a good reason for that. I don't think he would be against that, or they would be against that. They're criticizing transgression for the sake of transgression, which I still believe that it's good, because it forces you to rethink these conventions. All right, I'm repeating myself. We should challenge the norm of accepting French people. Actually, a fascist in chat.
Yet whether it was virtuous or vice-ridden depends on the ethical content and societal impact of the convention in question. Nonetheless, opposition to traditional social rules is what elevates the modern intellectuals in the eyes of their peers. However, the recognition granted by scholars to the rejection of established morals or religious laws inevitably shapes the perspectives of those who are not intellectuals. What is celebrated amongst postmodern bohemian types eventually permeates the lives of unskilled workers and welfare recipients, those most in need of boundaries to improve their lives or beauty to provide hope for change.
All right, scholars, don't be don't start questioning morality and religious order too much, because then poor people, the poor and uneducated, who need order, who need a strong authority to tell them what's better for them, they might not do what's better for them. So, you should really slack off on criticizing religion and traditional moral forms, because these poor people, especially from what I can tell, black people, is they're not gonna be good. They're not gonna act as we want them to anymore. Yeah, these clips are mostly of black people. Kind of weird. Well, it's not that weird. It's totally understandable. We know where this person's coming from now.
The rejection of established morals or religious laws inevitably shapes the perspectives of those who are not intellectuals.
Criticizing them for having the rainbow stuff because you're transgressing moral laws by being gay. Chat, you're transgressing moral laws by being gay. Stop transgressing moral laws, okay? You're turning society degenerate. This is literally you right now. Stop it.
Inevitably shapes the perspectives of those who are not intellectuals. What is celebrated amongst postmodern bohemian types eventually permeates the lives of unskilled workers and welfare recipients, those most in need of boundaries to improve their lives or beauty to provide hope for change. The outcome is moral, spiritual, and emotional poverty, an empty life of fleeting pleasures and prolonged suffering.
So here you have another problem of fascists. And now I'm very happy with calling them a fascist very openly. Here the problem is that when you talk about let's say the spiritual, the cultural poverty, blah blah blah, all these things, you can give credence to that. I as a personal experience, I live in a very economically poor and therefore culturally poor. I don't know about spiritually. I don't really give a fuck about spiritual poverty or whatever. But in the sense of purpose and all that, things aren't going well, right? And here's where you can say, all right, well, people don't really have the economic ability or freedom to experiment and look into how they could develop themselves through the activity in their free time, because they don't have free time. They have to work in jobs that they don't like and that pay not that much because they're poor, blah, 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 blah. Or what you can say is, yeah, they need structural order and morality and religious authority, if I'm following correctly. So this whole idea that what poor people need, right? The reason why poor people are struggling, it's not because of capitalism, all right, guys? It's not because some people are making a shit ton of money off of the needed poverty of the masses. No, what's going on, actually? Don't look at the capitalists, all right? Stop looking at the capitalists. Stop looking at capitalism in general. Start looking at the intellectuals who are questioning moral values and religious authority. That's the reason for economic poverty or cultural poverty.
Instead of empowering people to demand better standards, we simply brush it off like that doesn't matter at all.
Whenever he's dancing, I feel happy, I have joy watching him dancing.
We think we are free because we can stuff our faces with fast food. We can get addicted to pornography as early as 8 years old, dance to the trendiest and increasingly shorter tunes, and take big pharma pills to cure man-made diseases. But it's okay, we are wearing blue light glasses to prevent our eyes from frying while we doom scroll our favorite social media. This type of
people will find that funny in chat. I hope this is, I don't have to like comment on that. I think this is, it's very mask off on itself. I think it's very clear. I won't waste my time on describing the obvious, but those are all situations or hot talking points of far-right people.
Transgression kink is so prevalent in our intellectual modern mindset that we just simply accept any form of degeneracy as the new big thing. Why bother that mainstream music is getting increasingly more empty? After all, it's transgressive. Why bother that...
Is music more and more transgressive? Is that something? I don't think music is necessarily more and more transgressive. If you mean sexually, if you look at music from like the 2000s and you look at video clips and shit, you see video clips like with a guy with like surrounded by like a bunch of half-naked women dancing and like showing off their bodies and being degenerate, right? I feel like does that still happen today? Maybe. I don't really watch video clips, but I feel like it's less of a thing. Young people do have less and less sex. Absolutely. Call me underscore. Yeah, popular music today is just banal. It's not very transgressive. You want to talk about transgressive music, look at rock. Look at jazz. Jazz and rock were extremely transgressive for their time. Music today is not transgressive. People don't really care that much for the transgressivity of music. I think the only like the latest song that was like transgressive and that people didn't like, what was it? Was it Lil Nas X being like a devil or something? But who cares? Like the people who are getting transgressed by that or who are being offended by that is like fucking Christians, and that's it. What about WAP? Who I don't know who sang WAP, but like who cares? The only person who was mad about that was Ben Shapiro. Socially and culturally, there's not that much transgressive music anymore. Yeah, mainstream music has become less transgressive and more commercial. Like, I mean, transgressive to who, right? Godspeed You Steve. Yeah, it is less transgressive to us, right? But like, if you have music that talks about homosexuality or that, you know, that has black people in it, that's transgressive to some people, right? Transgression is relative. Having black people with money is transgressive to still some people out there. So I don't know. I disagree with the fact that music is transgressive. Absolutely. Maybe I haven't watched enough music or listened to a lot of music. Watched enough music.
Soma-inducing live shows is transgressive. Why bother that our children are getting exposed to extreme content on the internet? It's transgressive.
Searching for the best Canadian cannabis, weed, reefer, Mary Jane? Look no further, because we're about to light up your...
For anyone who's not in a country where cannabis is legal, basically a fascist country, that was probably very, very weird for you. That was an ad, Ryan. Yeah, of course. Ryan's like, this is crazy.
There's someone somewhere, I'm sure, being liberated by all kinds of degeneracy that we just brush it off nowadays, so as to not be seen as too traditional, so as to not be seen as stuck up, and God forbid, to have standards. To be very clear, not all criticism of social conventions and traditions is destructive.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, I don't think they think that all criticism of conventions is bad. I just think that, no, I do agree that, you know, every transgression of convention has a value, inherent value. And I'm not saying, like, for example, the convention of murder is bad, then therefore go murder to prove that murder is actually bad. But like, you can put it into question and go, yeah, well, why is murder bad? Right? I feel like that's transgressing the norm by questioning it. The same way, you know, asking like, does God actually exist? Is transgressing the general normalized idea of God being God. You could still be wrong. But questioning these things is good. And sometimes when there's no harm, transgressing can be good. Oh, by the way, this last couple of seconds sounded like someone was really hurt in their lives. And it's kind of sad. I do believe that a lot of fascists are fascists because of, you know, social conditions, material conditions, but here it seems very personal. Listen again.
Being liberated by all kinds of degeneracy that we just brush it off nowadays, so as to not be seen as too traditional, so as to not be seen as stuck up, and God forbid, to have standards. To be very clear, not all criticism of social conventions...
Yeah, fascists are fascists because they're insecure, says Pyranarchist. Meanwhile, being like, if you're too traditional, if you like abide by like conventions, like people will call you a stuck up. People will call you, God forbid, what is it?
To have standards.
Oh yeah, people will say that, oh God, you have standards, which is really bad. Okay, people don't like me because I have standards. People criticize me because I have standards.
Be very clear, not all criticism of social conventions and traditions is destructive. In any society, there is much deserving criticism. However, those critics must recognize that civilization requires preservation as much as it needs change. Immoderate criticism, or criticism driven by utopian ideals, can inflict great harm, even devastation. No individual, regardless of brilliance, can single-handedly deduce all knowledge, rendering the wisdom of previous generation useless. To think otherwise is to indulge in the most egotistical intellectual arrogance. The same type of intellectual arrogance that once made it possible for great postmodernist minds to sign a petition calling for an extreme reformation of the laws of consent in France in 1977.
Okay. There's so much to unpack here, but no, criticism does not lead. Criticism of the status quo or criticism of conventions does not necessarily lead to authoritarianism. If anything, I think, well, what you're advocating for as a fascist is authoritarianism. You seem to gesture in a way to say, hey guys, you have to be really careful of criticism of the status quo, of order, of the hierarchies right now, because if you're critical of hierarchies, then that might lead to Stalinism. It might lead to authoritarianism. So you know what you should do? Just accept things as they are.
In the realms of art, we witness a parallel decline in standards of quality that mirrors the fragility of the standards of our civilization. As boundaries blur and taboos are broken in the name of artistic expression, there seems to be a disregard for the timeless principles that uphold the true essence of art. The pursuit of novelty and shock value has taken precedence over the pursuit of meaning, beauty, and even craftsmanship.
I think a lot of art that transgresses is more meaningful than... This person actually put craftsmanship and meaning in the same... Well, I mean, you already know my fucking ideas on art, right? I genuinely think more and more as I hear arguments from people like them, that there's two camps: people who believe in craftsmanship and aesthetics, and people who believe in the conceptual art and art that actually has meaning. And by meaning, I mean something when they make art to say something, not just to make something that looks nice. You have decorative art, you have meaningful conceptual art. You have, as Marcel Duchamp would say, retinal art, and you have conceptual art. These motherfuckers, they say, oh, conceptual art doesn't have meaning. Meanwhile, they make landscapes and they make paintings of Romans or whatever, and they'll say that this has meaning. Shut the fuck up, dude.
Seems to be a disregard for the timeless principles that uphold the true essence of art. The pursuit of novelty and shock value has taken precedence over the pursuit of meaning, beauty, and even craftsmanship. The shift has resulted in a plethora of works that prioritize provocation over substance, leaving audiences longing for the profound and the sublime.
A lot of shit has more substance than your fucking landscape painting that is the same painting that's been done for centuries and that just shows the sublime. At this point, it's not sublime anymore. It's fucking boring. There's nothing about it. It's not interesting. It doesn't say anything. All it says is that, one, you have talent to make an artwork, and two, that this artwork is very beautiful. But aside from that, it's not saying much.
The decline in the quality of art can be attributed in part to the influence of intellectuals and critics who celebrate transgression for transgression's sake. The notion that breaking social norms inherently elevates an artwork has led to a proliferation of shallow and sensationalistic pieces.
The art world is the result of intellectuals. It's not the result of capitalism and market pressures. No, don't look at capitalism. Look at intellectuals. All right? Don't look at capitalism. That's what we said at the beginning of the segment. Don't look at capitalism. Look at the transgression of moral order. Look at intellectuals. Maybe they'll say, look at Jews. I don't know. We'll see. Let's continue.
The pursuit of artistic excellence has been overshadowed by the pursuit of attention, leading to a devaluation of the traditional virtues that once defined art. On top of that, the commodification and commercialization of art have further eroded its quality. The demand for instant gratification and market success has incentivized artists to produce works that cater to popular trends
There you go. Yeah. So this makes a lot more sense to say it's actually market pressures instead of saying it's intellectuals. Even them, they're like, yeah, we do have to say it's market pressures. It's not necessarily intellectuals.
Rather than pursue genuine artistic integrity.
At $98 million. The hammer is up, sir. I'm selling it on this side of the room. It's Yuki's bid, a fair warning. And selling, thank you, sir, for $98 million. Thank you, Yuki. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Art becomes reduced to a mere product, manufactured for mass consumption, rather than a reflection of the human experience, a true mirror of the human condition. In this,
wasn't that like actually really good? That was, wasn't it like really meaningful? Yeah, the robot is really good. Yeah, it's isn't it like the robot? Yeah, it is kind of, well, it's not blood. It's trying to like fix its own, you know, like its own leaks, its own blood kind of, it's oil until it doesn't work anymore. Yeah, it's leaking hydraulic fluid. Yeah, hydraulic, okay, it's not oil. Yeah, it keeps trying to clean it, but it can never fix it. It's sort of like tragic, it's kind of sad. I don't know, I think it's really good. Yeah, working until it can't anymore. All it does, it's work. It's its only purpose. And its work is to like keep itself alive, or trying to keep itself alive. It eventually just dies. All it does is work to keep itself alive. That says more about the human experience than any of your fucking Da Vinci paintings. Fuck off.
This race for popularity, depth and quality often take a backseat.
I'm not the whiskey you want.
And so transgression becomes a double-edged sword. With the rejection of established conventions and the rise of relativism, the criteria by which we evaluate art becomes increasingly subjective and arbitrary. The absence of objective benchmarks for excellence allows for the proliferation of mediocrity and the shortage we see of modern artworks of aesthetic accomplishment.
Yeah, as I was saying, art is about beauty and aesthetics, not about actually having to say something or you know, making people think, or actually having to discuss the human experience as we were saying before. No, it's about aesthetics. It's about, you know, contemplating something. You sit down, you turn your brain off, and then you go like this. Wow. And that's it. To them, that's what art is. They don't want you to think. They think intellectuals are some kind of plague to society. They don't want you to think. They don't want art to make you to think. Because if art makes you think, you might become one of these intellectuals. And then you might want to do like, I don't know, authoritarianism. No. Stop thinking. Stop thinking. Let us do the authoritarianism. Don't try to do the authoritarianism yourself. All right? Stop thinking. Just look at art that is beautiful. All right? Drool a bit as you look at it. Just let it soak into you. This art that requires you to think and requires you to like understand different concepts and like relate them to your own experience. No. Look at a beautiful landscape or a Madonna and Child. Maybe the Madonna and Child can make you think of your own mother, but that's not that important. What's important is that, did you see the baby's skin, how smooth it is? That's real craftsmanship. That's really beautiful. That's where the value of art is. Fascists, yeah, they want objective standards, which is only plastic. It's only in terms of beauty and aesthetics. No, I don't believe that there is objective standards to art. Art is going to speak to you depending on what it's trying to say. And you know what? Some artworks are not going to speak to me because it's just an experience that I cannot relate to. It's happened to me before. Some experiences I just don't give a fuck for. I've been to a museum. Some of them, it just doesn't speak to me because I'm not primed for it, or I'm not the right audience. And that's fine. And some, they do speak to me, and they do add to my own experience, and they do make me understand some parts of my own experience and my place in society. I think art is valuable for that. See, now chat has been unleashed. Perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. I don't even know what I was saying. I was probably talking about how I don't like art that's basically just for beauty and aesthetics and how meaningless it actually is.
Lack of critical discernment and a reluctance to uphold standards in art has led to a culture of artistic relativism, where personal preference trumps artistic merit, and where personal preference trumps artistic merit. What
like to have that conversation, we need to know, what does art have to do, right? What is the purpose of art? Some people will say it's purposeless, right? Art for the sake of art. Some people will say art has, it's for aesthetics and beauty, and it has like, easily quantifiable and measurable qualities that we can review. That's what cinema cartography believes in. It's also what fascists happen to believe in as well. Doesn't mean that if you believe in that, you're necessarily a fascist. But in this case, yes, they are a fascist. They are fascists. They're two people, right? Sometimes it's a guy, sometimes it's a girl. But then, if to you, the purpose of art is to have a conversation between an artist, it's a mode of communication between an artist and someone who views an artwork. Or, as I see it, as a way to discuss and to interact with certain ideas or experiences with other people, right? To me, for example, did I believe Barbie in its aesthetics and beauty was good? It was good technically. It was a really good movie or artwork technically. In its themes and its narrative, was it good? No, it was terrible. In its ability to make people talk, was it good? I do believe so, yes. And to me, it's this latter point that is important. Can people talk about it? Can people have discussions and learn and grow through these discussions, grow through the art that they experience, whether the art is good or bad, in its aesthetics or in its narrative or in even its ideas, are they good or bad? Are people able to discuss about it and grow from it? Can they have a social experience among each other through that artwork? Can that be a catalyzing element to an interaction between people of the same society or same community or whatever? To me, that's what's important to art. That's the purpose of art. Do I believe that a beautiful landscape can do that? Maybe sometimes, but generally no. Can pure aesthetics or beauty do that? I don't think that it's enough. Pure aesthetic beauty can make me go, wow, it's beautiful. But I cannot share this experience. I cannot grow from that experience with anyone. I believe that if you solely consume art that is purely beautiful or purely aesthetically pleasing, or has great technique or craftsmanship or whatever it is, to use the same words as cinema cartography, I believe you'll become culturally and spiritually impoverished. Because what you're doing is you're solely looking at art for its entertainment value. Because to me, beauty is retinal, right? Retinal art. It's retinal. It's something that you appreciate solely with your eyes, not with your mind. And to me, growth comes in your mind, not in your eyes.
Identity of the artist trumps the message of the art. But to snob years of artistic tradition and aesthetic excellence.
There's a contradiction in what cinematography is trying to say. They keep talking about meaning and the significance of art, right? Here they say
trumps the message of the art.
Trumps the message of the art. And then they keep showing this as the kind of, I think it's like the counterexample. What isn't degenerate is this. But what is the message of this, right? It is beautiful. It's classical painting. It's technically masterful, I imagine. But what's the message behind this? I feel like conceptual art has a message. The message is the art in itself. But what the fuck is the message of this? Yeah, they only like the message of trad values in status quo. Yeah, if it's a message that they don't agree with, it's not a message at all. Let's see what the message is behind this. Maybe they won't talk about it.
But to snob years of artistic tradition and aesthetic excellence is a fool's endeavor, and the consequence of this decline in the quality of art extends far beyond the artistic sphere.
I'm going to, let's see, turn it and try not to get it on Amy's sweater, and I'm going to flick it. Oh, is that not fantastic?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's cool. Okay, hold on. This is what I'm going to do. That one's done.
Art has...
I already talked about how, whatever that lady's doing is arts and crafts. It's crafts. It's not much art. The kind of thing that you do without really, there's no meaning to it. But there's no meaning to this as much as there's no meaning in that either. Yeah, it looks like crafts. Exactly. Maybe an anarchist. Hey, now we have chat. Great. I'm glad that you're there to support me and to show that I'm not just doing this all by myself.
has always played a pivotal role in shaping culture and society, serving as a reflection of our values, aspirations, and collective identity. When art loses its ability to inspire, question, and uplift,
art loses its ability to inspire, question, and uplift. That's what modern art does. This does not inspire, question, or uplift. Most people see this and they're like, wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty neat. Good job on whoever did that. And that's it. They don't think, they don't actually absorb it as part of their identity through discussion or through pondering. All they do is, wow, this is beautiful. This is not any of the things that cinematography is aspiring to in the art that they're trying to advocate for.
When art loses its ability to inspire, question, and uplift, society suffers. It deprives us of the transformative power of art to elevate our souls, deepen our understanding, and provoke meaningful dialogue. In a world increasingly characterized by superficiality, polarization, and instant gratification, the loss of truly great art is a tragic reflection of the loss of our shared humanity. This calls for a renewed sense of individual responsibility.
I think what we have here is that cinematography may know a bit about cinema, but has no idea what they're talking about in terms of visual arts. To dismiss conceptual art as not having a message or not having a meaning means that you have no idea what conceptual art is. What you're doing is, or your conception of what conceptual art is that it's only there for shock factor. And very often that's the opinion of people who haven't looked into what different pieces of conceptual art are trying to say through what they're displaying, right? It's easy to go, this person did that just to shock or whatever. But no, there's often meaning behind what happened. Like I'll give like a very famous example, like Banksy shredding the painting, right? You can say, oh, that's just for shock value and leave it at that. And if that's your analysis of what art is or what conceptual art is, of course you're going to hate conceptual art. But if you decide to get a bit informed on what conceptual art is, and you understand the point of ripping if you understand what Banksy believes in, what they advocate for, and what the point of shredding an artwork at an auction, what that's trying to convey, then that might actually make you engage more, not only with the artwork, but with your conception and your vision of the art world and the art market, right? It's what it's designed to do. Another thing is Duchamp's urinal. If you don't understand conceptual art, if you're a dumb fuck or if you're a fascist, all of them kind of blend in together. You will believe that Duchamp's urinal is just there for shock value, and you will dismiss it because of that. You'll just say it's degenerate and I don't have to engage with it. You'll just dismiss it. However, Duchamp's urinal is one of the most, or Duchamp's fountain, which is a urinal, is one of the most influential and important artworks in the 20th century because it's much more than just shock value. The shock value makes you engage with it, but once you engage with it, that's where the actual message, the meaning of that artwork lies. If you don't want to engage with it because it's just shock value and you're like, this is degenerate, I want to look at this, well, that's your problem. You just don't know what art is. If subversive artists were just in it for the attention that come from shock value, they would probably just be on TikTok or something, maybe, I don't know. Especially if everyone's shocking, then the shock is not enough. I don't think shock is enough today. Call_me_ says, shock value, well, why is it shocking? That's already an interesting question. It is. Okay, let's continue. It's almost done. Also, like these paintings, or these are reproductions, a lot of them I would have a very hard time caring for. You might like them because they're beautiful and because they're greatly crafted and executed, but what are they saying? Aside from the myth or whatever, like Christian myth or Greek myth that it's depicting, what is it saying?
This calls for a renewed sense of individual responsibility. It is imperative that we recognize the role we play in shaping the cultural landscape and actively strive to be better. we must resist the allure of novelty and transgression for its own sake, and instead seek depth, meaning, and craftsmanship in our artistic endeavors. By upholding and promoting the timeless principles that define great art, we can contribute to the restoration of its transformative power and its ability to inspire and provoke genuine reflection.
We want art that will change things. We want art that is transformative, but we don't want art that disturbs. So what do you want art to change things for, or change things to? What was the end goal behind this? Timeless equals European styles of the 18th century. Exactly. I love that.
The practical life of the world's underclass is extremely influenced by abstract ideas of misguided social critics of upper-class backgrounds. The truth is that intellectual and artistic life still holds immense practical importance. Practical man may not prioritize theoretical considerations, but the world is governed mainly by outdated ideas from economists, social philosophers, novelists, artists, and now even pop singers and influencers. They are the unrecognized legislators of our increasingly global society, and we ought to pay close attention to what they say and how they say it.
In Pallas's work, the impossible trajectory of hope becomes the ground where irony and advice dance together in frightening hallways, alive with languor and vitality. Screenland is the underground and overlay for consciousness.
We must embrace the wisdom of the past, while also engaging with the present, carefully considering the impact of our choices and contributions to art and society at large. By actively striving for excellence, authenticity, and meaningful connections, we can play a crucial role in the revitalization and preservation of the cultural fabric that underpins our shared humanity. Through these individual acts of responsibility and commitment, we can collectively navigate the challenges of the modern world and use our art to build a more resilient and flourishing civilization for generations to come.
I'm sure that whatever he's... okay. The dog shit video, by the way. But here, this was probably extremely transgressive for the time. I can imagine that authorities didn't like that. This was extremely transgressive, and this was an affront to the to the great Louvre music, because that's in the Louvre, I believe. That's Musée d'Orsay. That was transgressive. And I'm sure you would have said it's transgressive for the sake of being transgressive, because you wouldn't have looked into the meaning of it. Anyway, dog shit video. I'm happy they're going mask off, though. Why this is fascist? Just quickly, it's fascist because these fuckers are identifying a problem within society and linking it to culture. They're linking it to intellectuals who shape culture. They link it to, as I said at the beginning of the video, degeneracy. They don't fundamentally want to change anything. At least from what I understand in this video, they're not actually advocating for change. What they're doing they do want to change things, but just revert back to how it used to be before all this degeneracy happened. Instead of trying to understand the cause of so much of this malaise that's happening in modernity. They touched some of the causes, right? But there's no material analysis here. It's basically just culture sucks, and it's the reason why we're bad, like why we're feeling terrible and why the art sucks. Culture sucks because culture sucks. There's no analysis of the material conditions that brought us there. I think they talked about the art market a little bit once. Aside from that, there's nothing. It's a shallow video, once again, that's vaguely, pointing at mediocrity, which is not even defined, as one of the reasons why society is becoming degenerate. What are people saying? Okay. Hey, I feel like I recognize this name. Okay, so the tragic and crucial difference is that if art can stimulate emotions and ideas, mass appeal cinema, because of its easy, irresistible effect, extinguishes all traces of thought and feeling irrevocably. People cease to feel any need for the beautiful or the spiritual and consume films like bottles of Coca-Cola. Which I don't necessarily disagree with. Like, I watched all of Tarkovsky's films. I don't know, this was a while ago. And I did say that, you know, I could feel the spirituality from his videos, and it was beautiful and all that. And I really liked it. But I do feel, though, that I've had more engaging movies than Andrei Tarkovsky. Like, I watched Tarkovsky and it's like, oh, I feel like I understand the religious experience a bit more because I'm not a religious person. But there's movies that I was able to discuss and actually grow from and play with ideas and concepts much more than I could ever with Tarkovsky. One of which was Barbie. I might be a degenerate, but I was able to talk about Barbie with Ballet and other friends and have really engaging, interesting, and passionate discussions on different topics, on different concepts, on how we feel and our own experiences with these concepts and ideas. We did so much work from watching Barbie. Watching Tarkovsky was more of a personal, individual thing that did not have any effect on the social. I discussed it a bit. I was like, yeah, it's beautiful. It made me feel spiritual for the first time or whatever. But in terms of having meaning and ideas, which to me is best conveyed through discussions with people, I'm sure I could have as passionate conversations about Tarkovsky with other people, for sure. But in this case, it didn't work that much. The most annoying thing about fascists is when they get something right and then pivot hard and draw the exact wrong conclusions. Yeah, call me _. There's a group of people who control the banks. They're very wealthy. And through that wealth, they control the media. They control Hollywood. They control our culture through all the wealth they've amassed. And then you're like, yeah, isn't the bourgeoisie really problematic and like ingrained into the system? And they're like, but what? I'm talking about the Jews. What are you talking about? And you're like, what? But yeah, let's continue. Antoine Petrov says, the idea of the video is okay, and I agree with this quote as well as everything else Tarkovsky has said. Wow, blanket agreement with Tarkovsky. But I think the final result here just shows that you should have stick to film analysis. This is funny. I feel like a lot of people are not necessarily in agreement here, which is good. Ever since your video of art is not for sale essay, I've always before and afterwards understood yours of this channel frustration with how art, artistic merit, and the creative process is treated and commodified and perverted for capital in today's world. I still feel this way, but my conclusions never came to something even close to the type of rhetoric this channel has been putting out. It almost baffles me how your conclusions seem to slowly shift towards parroting fascist traditionalist rhetoric that toes the line between conservatism, something that is very much the antithesis of art, free thinking, and out-of-the-box ideas, hence the word conserve, to conserve the past. These worrying trends you complain about all seem to throw the ills onto society and the pitfalls we've all faced due to the much larger and greater forces out there that we cannot control. And to touch on that, I think you fault your fellow man too much and expect the worst when it comes to the ideals and desires of another person. It is the powers that govern society that often bring on these ills and that you complain about. And the degeneracy you speak of sometimes is a way for said society to react to and fight back against those powers. Art in it of itself is expressive and provocative and very much pushes boundaries, like you said. Art, in essence, must be degenerate in the eyes of a few or many to say something. That's good. I just don't understand what your problem here is, other than parroting shallow talking points that are constantly churned out by Roman statue profile pics all over social media. At this point, I don't see things changing for this channel, so maybe just rename it to The Return to Tradition with some cross emoji and call it a day already. Fuck, this is good. Oh, the shade. Paragraphs would have helped it, but 10 out of 10 comment. I think it's the most liked comment in this comment section so far. 166. It's even liked more than than Cinema Cartography's quote. Yeah, it's the most liked comment from what I can tell. Oh, another one. This is the second most liked after, well, third most liked, including Cinema Cartography. Yeah, definitely expected degeneracy as a designation to be used ironically here, which wasn't. I have to agree with the plethora of comments that notice the stench of conservatism in this piece. What the essay fails to mention is that many of the examples provided for good art were in fact incredibly transgressive on their time, and if it wasn't by intellectuals that championed its transgression, we would have heralded those pieces as we do today. Also obvious that if you don't seem to get what his transgressive piece is supposedly revealing against, that it must then be either transgressive or transgressiveness' sake, or outright empty of meaning, which won't always be the case. All right, I had a hard time reading this, but that's exactly what I said though. I said, like, very often people will dismiss people like these, not the commenter, the cinema cartography person's people, is that they'll see something and they'll be like, all right, it's just transgressive. If it's transgressive, I reject it. Fuck it, I don't want to hear about it. It's transgressive. Meanwhile, there could be something to it. Very often there is. And finally, the call for a return to artistic standards begs the question, who would set these standards and who will be able to meet those standards and who won't? Good. Yeah, cinema cartography, conservative art. See, I want to read the comments here. This is the comments I said were really good. I think they're answering. Yeah, it really baffles me, especially like I said, going back to the commodification of art video this channel put out a while ago. It feels so reactionary, honestly, morally, ethically confused on the channel's part to go from that to these talking points. And the aforementioned that you said in your comment, which sucks. I really like this channel. Funny enough, I ended up watching a video named Is the Cinema Cartographer Fascist? And he dropped that Illusion of Progress video essay that ended up raising my eyebrow on a lot of questionable takes and conclusions he made there. I'm gonna hyperventilate. What the fuck? Hey, that's us, chat, that's us. We and what? Then we ended up raising their eyebrow on a lot of questionable takes and conclusions he made there. Then I watched the recommended video and still tried to give this channel the benefit of the doubt since I respected their earlier work so much. I figured maybe it was a fluke in thinking, or that's not really what they wanted to get across in the end. But nope, I think it might be GG after this one. Lol. A shame, really, because I love this channel and the thoughts and ideas and media I brought out into the YouTube space and inevitably in leftist discussion. To me, it feels so contradictory to advocate for art and the creative process with such vitriol without acknowledging things like you've said, and then to preach the idea of returning to more traditional roots feels like the very antithesis of what makes art art, and why art is so important. Bleh, I don't know. Meh. Well, if you're interested in here, the video I got recommended by Germinal in the Cinema Cartographer Fascist is a bit long, but interesting. Even more now that this new video is out, give it a watch or skim through it if you're interested. Just wish whoever runs this account doesn't go down this path, but it's out of my control, I guess. I don't know. Oh baby, I got some chills. We're being fans of this first comment, but like, no, holy shit, we're gonna have this person on stream. Ooh, thank you so much. I actually got a couple of comments here on my video on Cinema Cartographer's Fascist because, you know, that pointed me towards paid actor. Yeah, because it did pretty good. 2K views. Okay, it's not Canvas numbers. Okay, it's not Canvas numbers, but it is really good Germinal numbers. Thank goodness degeneracy came out so we could answer the question more clearly. It's false consciousness that leads to fascism. They correctly identify problems caused by capitalism, but incorrectly diagnose them and pin them on obscure factors of progressivism. Exactly. That's what's going on. Oh, guys. All right. I'm so happy. No, they didn't comment. The person didn't comment on my video. You know when sometimes you feel like you're doing something and you're like, does it really matter? You know, like on Germinal, you know, I'm doing Germinal for fun. In case you don't know, my first channel, The Canvas, is my main channel. It's where I actually make a living from. But like Germinal here, like my little streams have like 20 people. My videos get like 200 views, whatever. I'm doing it for fun, right? But in this case, I made a video on cinematography, which, you know, a lot of people were like, you're calling them fascists, blah, blah, blah. You're just like another lefty calling them a fascist. You know what? I don't give a fuck. I'm doing this for fun. But then someone watched that video and it made them raise an eyebrow. Out of like the 200 and 400 people who watched that video initially, it made them raise an eyebrow. I didn't convince them that they were fascists or whatever, and that's not necessarily what I wanted to do with the first video. In a way, it made them, it primed them. Okay, that's something I've been saying on stream for a while, right? When you're trying to convince people, you don't have to convince them outright, like right now, right? You don't have to convince them instantly. Most people won't be convinced instantly. Usually it's a lot of things. It's like creating like sensors in their brain, right? In their brains. Like if you say like, oh yeah, Israel is like genocidal, they may like, oh, come on, it's not genocide, right? But just saying that is priming them for when they look at the news and they see, oh yeah, Israel just bombed a hospital. Oh, Israel just bombed like a refugee camp. It primes them. You know, they might react negatively to whatever arguments you're giving them, but it primes them. And like the person didn't react negatively to like me saying cinematographers are fascist, but it did make them eyebrows raise, right? Raise an eyebrow like this. Now, after that, they were maybe not primed. It's like a weird way to say it. And it made them more sensitive to whatever, you know, thing I said. And through that sensitivity, they were able to catch something and write a comment and get a shit ton of likes for that comment, to a point where it got the, you know, biggest comment on a fascist video, and calling them a fascist and having people agree with them. It's great. I'm so happy. Anyway, I'm really happy. And all of that with the stream and with like a smaller channel, not even with like the big canvas channel. Hey, we're doing good things. We're doing good things. We won, boys. Fascism is over. We did it. We did it. I forgot to do a conclusion. So yes, cinematography is a fascist. I'm happy that his comment section, or their comment section, seems to be more aware of it and more maybe sensitive to that, and don't shy away from criticizing them for it, and for some kind of, for the vagueness of their claims and the lack of material analysis of what they say. Perhaps cinematography watched the video since it was linked in the comment section. Maybe they're going to watch this one. Cinematography, I'm calling you a fascist, but I don't necessarily think that I don't think that you have bad intentions. I don't think that you're acting maliciously. I do believe that you might have ideas that are in themselves malicious, because their consequences would be terrible and devastating. But I don't think that you and yourself are a bad person. I think you really care about these things, as I do as well. I just think that your conclusions may not be in the right place. I'm a communist. I'm an anarchist. I don't agree with Stalin, Mao, and all those leftists that you've, you know, showed on your video. So I don't agree with them. And I do believe that, you know, we have to be extra vigilant about leftists who might turn more authoritarian, as I am. But I think we have to be even more vigilant about people who are on the right wing, who are being authoritarian. And the path that I'm seeing you go towards is a path that we've also seen repeated through history. And it's one that's, at least to me, far more chilling in its effects than the one that you've claimed that was the worst, which is the left wing. As someone pointed out in your video, Tarkovsky was able to make his movies from the USSR. And as I've said, yes, he was censored. And it wasn't always that great. And I'm not defending the USSR here. But the thing is, people who were called degenerate artists in Nazi Germany, well, they didn't have the freedom of being able to make movies and have their movies funded by the state. Far from it. So I would ask you to be as vigilant about right-wing, you know, criticism of degenerate art as you are vigilant about left-wing authoritarianism. I hate both authoritarianisms. I hate the left wing and I hate the right wing authoritarianism. And I do recognize that both exist. And I would never prefer one to the other. You seem to prefer one for the other. And it's quite concerning. And I'm happy to see that a lot of people in your comment section are as concerned as I am. Again, doesn't mean that you're malicious. It means that maybe you're unaware of the implications of the ideas that you're promoting on your channel.